Good morning, everyone. My name is Taryn, and welcome to my channel, Nicole Flower House. I have a huge garden where I grow tons of cut flowers here in Zone 7B. It is mid-March, and the garden is showing signs of spring. It is just around the corner, so I thought I'd give you a tour of the garden, and we can see what's going on. Here is an update of my willow patch. It's kind of hard to see the willow in between all of the weeds, but last fall I did cut the branches down. I had a pretty good first harvest. This will be the second season for the willow, and they're starting to put on new growth in little sprouts. I haven't really done this before with the willow, so I'm not sure what it'll turn into. I'm hoping that they'll grow offshoots like they're supposed to, so I can get another harvest at the end of this fall. Now is the time where I'm really getting to see what overwintered well in the garden and what didn't. This Dara did extremely well. It survived all winter, didn't mind the cold temperatures, and now it's turning lush and green. Next to it, I have calendula. These took quite a bit more cold damage. They look okay, they're still alive. I'm wondering if I go in and prune the damaged leaves off, if they'll do better. But next to those, I have new seedlings that I just started this spring. So you can see the difference in size between the calendula that was overwintered and the new seedlings. I also have some anemones popping up in here. These were planted in January, which is not what I recommend, and I'll talk more about that later. I also have some stock in here. The stock overwintered okay. They are sizable, but they also have cold damage on the foliage. The onions I planted not too long ago are doing pretty good, but I wanted to show you there's some daffodils popping up in this bed that I missed when I was switching this bed over. The first year I planted a lot of bulbs, and then throughout the season I kind of changed my mind about how I wanted to organize and structure things. So I decided to move the daffodils out of a raised bed and just more into the landscape and save this raised bed space for other things. But obviously I missed a few, so they're still popping up, but I want to see if they bloom, so they're going to stay. My tulips are finally budding up and showing some color and some promise of blooming soon. These are the new tulips that I planted in January, which is what I plan on doing. I plan on planting my tulips as annuals. The foliage looks really good. Everything's a lot later for me this year than last year. I'm not sure if that's because of the winter we've had or if this is what I should expect from season to season. We definitely did not have as much sun and not as many warm days as we did compared to last winter. This eucalyptus is still holding on nicely. It overwintered, which again was an experiment. Most growers grow their eucalyptus as annuals, so I'm happy to see that this has survived for me here in Zone 7B. I also have sweet peas that survived over the winter. I planted these in the fall. They were very small and slow growing throughout most of the winter season, but now that it's starting to warm up a little bit and have more daylight, they're starting to take off very nicely. So maybe I'll have blooms earlier this year compared to last year, because last year it felt like I waited and waited for those sweet peas to bloom. My My herbs still look nice, the thyme and oregano. And there are a few random tulips popping through that I thought I buried deep enough last season that they wouldn't come back, but they have. So we'll see what happens. They're growing right in the mix with my chives, so hopefully that's not a big deal. Now these tulips, again, are the ones that I buried super deep last year thinking that they wouldn't come back, but they actually have buds on them. A lot of them have buds, so I'm just curious to see what'll happen. I believe these are the Vital mix from Color Blends. I know it's from Color Blends and it's a mix of white tulips, so they're coming back and being troopers. These are bachelor's buttons that I transplanted not too long ago. I grew these from seeds very, very late winter, so about February, I think, is when I started these seeds. So those got transplanted in not too long ago because they are frost tolerant and can handle the cool weather. Here's an update on the carnation seedlings that I planted. And next to those to the left, you see some carnations that have overwintered from the fall. I planted a lot of stuff in the fall thinking I could get a late fall crop, but none of that really happened. They grew very slowly, but the cold tolerant stuff has survived the winter. They overwintered well, and we'll see the difference in bloom time between these seedlings and the overwintered carnations. Here's another super short anemone bloom. I just need to go through and cut all these off and see if they shoot up any taller flower spikes or not. The poppies are looking pretty decent. I've never grown poppies before, so I'm not sure when I should expect them to shoot up flower stalks and blooms, but they look nice, so I'm going to leave those in there for now. I do plan on flipping this bed to annuals such as dill and basil later in the season, so I will just interplant those throughout there until the poppies are done. Here are bachelor's buttons that I planted in the fall, and they are close to blooming, and I wanted to show you a comparison between this plant and the seedlings that I just planted. So you can see the advantage you get when you're able to overwinter cold hardy flowers. And again, I'm excited to see the differences in bloom time and just how many weeks I gained. And I wanted to show you this angle from the top because the green wire mesh is there. It's there to support the plants and they're just growing right through it. It's not a big deal. They don't seem to be bothered by it. Now we are going to have a big storm later this afternoon, so we'll find out how much support it gives and if it holds up. I have daffodils planted all along the fence here. No buds yet on this group. They were planted a little later than the second group. And I also have what I think is St. John's wort planted right here. I've never grown this before and I don't really know what to expect. I think I'm gonna cut this way back and see if it shoots up any kind of stalks. I thought they had berries or something like that on them, but maybe I'm mistaken. Here's some daffodils that I planted a little earlier than the other ones, and they do have buds on them, so they should be blooming very soon. However, a lot of my neighbors' daffodils have already bloomed, so I'm not sure why mine are so much later, but I'm okay with that. Last year, all of my tulips and daffodils and ranunculus bloomed super early because we had a very mild winter. And then by the time it was Easter and Mother's Day, I didn't have any flowers left and I was in that weird gap between spring bulbs and summer flowers. And with the things that I've overwintered, I'm also hoping to bridge that gap that way. Here is a nice comparison to the sweet pea seedlings that I transplanted out not too long ago. These seeds were started in February, and I'm comparing it to the seeds that I direct sowed last fall. This bed has more anemones in it and some ranunculus. It's kind of mixed in there. Here are some Dara seedlings that I just transplanted out. Earlier I showed you some Dara that I'd overwintered, and I'll put that back up on the screen so you can compare. These seeds were started in February and just transplanted out, and you can see how much more growth there is on the overwintered plants. This bed has new stalk seedlings in it, so they don't have the cold damage that the other plants do, but again, the difference in size and most likely bloom time will be obvious later on in the spring. Now here in a minute, I'm going to show you something interesting I tried in the fall last year. I planted ranunculus right on top of my dahlias. Ranunculus do not like the heat, so as the heat sets in, these should be done, and I should be able to either lift or move these around so that the dahlias can come up and flourish. Now I planted these ranunculus in January, which I think was a huge mistake, and I feel so lucky that they're popping through and survived our rainy winter. Last winter was so mild that I thought it'd be no big deal to plant these in January. I didn't plant them in the fall because honestly I forgot and I just missed the planting window. I thought that if I direct sowed them in January that our winter would be mild enough that the foliage would pop up and everything would be fine. But that did not happen. Months passed by before these started to emerge. They didn't start coming up until about 2 weeks ago. So I thought for sure all of those corms I planted had rotted and were done for. But I got really lucky. I won't ever do that again, but I'm so grateful that these ranunculus have pulled through. I have 3 more beds of ranunculus popping up, and you can see them here, in addition to the experiment where I have them planted over top of the dahlias. Now this fall, when the dahlias are already established and blooming, I'll know exactly where they are. So I'm going to pre-sprout and plant my ranunculus in the fall like I did the first year, and I'll know exactly where those dahlias are, so I will plant around the dahlias. And corms are very small, so I won't have to be doing hardly any digging to get those in. I would love for my dahlias and ranunculus to be able to share a space. I don't know if that'll work. This is totally an experiment, but we'll see what happens. This little guy is actually a hollyhock. These plants are supposed to get super tall and gorgeous, but every time it shot up some growth last year, some critter, probably rabbits or something, was eating it down. So I didn't think it was going to come back, but hollyhocks are perennials and the root system survived, so here it is. Now I also have around 100 daffodils planted in the front here, which you can see they're starting to emerge, but nothing has a flower stalk or a bloom on it, so hopefully those come along as soon as we get more heat and more sun. I'm not sure if these will bloom earlier next season after they've been established for a year. That would be interesting to note and find out. This bed right here has some garlic in it, but what I really wanted to show you is there's more eucalyptus that I had thrown in here last summer, and I literally just didn't have anywhere else to put it, and I just wanted to see if it would survive right here. And I have not covered this, protected this, or done anything over the winter, and it looks almost better than the eucalyptus I have in the back. So I'm wondering if, since it had more air circulation and nothing covering it, that it has less water damage to it, the brown spotting on the leaves and things like that. So I'm interested to see, maybe I shouldn't be covering up my stuff next year. Next, I just wanted to share with you some things that's happening with my seedlings. I really need to thin these out. These are baby's breath seedlings. So I'm just working on separating them out and repotting them up into individual cells. And I think I'm going to do something a little different this time around for starting seeds. I'm going to use these pots called cow pots. They're biodegradable and made of cow manure, but I'm going to sow a bunch of seeds in each cell, and then once they're sprouted, I'm going to separate them out so I don't have to deal with the plug trays. And this is how I'm starting some Lisianthus seeds. I've never started Lisianthus seeds before, and I know it can be a little challenging. In my zone, I should be able to overwinter these, so that's why I'm starting these so late. I've put some of the varieties I'm growing up on the screen, and I also am doing a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to start some sunflower seeds inside. I guess I'm just getting a little impatient for the warm weather. And I'm also going to try to force some gladiolus bulbs. Since I can plant cow pots directly into the soil, the roots won't be disturbed that much. And I have a lot of sunflower seeds, so after this weekend, I might even go and direct seed some sunflowers to see if I can get a jump start. That is all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and got a little taste of spring and what was waking up in the garden. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and the best way that you can support me and my channel is to subscribe and share it with your flower-loving friends. I'll see you next time. Bye.